Hello and welcome to Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and we are here today with Kassi. Hi, Kassi.
Hello.
To be completely honest, I've had quite the week this week. And I'm just happy that Cassie's here today and we have our tandem episode because I have no idea what we're talking about today. Kassi uh, has completely taken the lead on driving the car for this episode, and I'm just really excited. So I'm going to hand it over to you and let me know and all of us know what we're going to be talking about today.
Totally. I love when I get to be in the driver's seat. It's never happened before. In honor of your recent launch of your new, coaching program, I figured that we could sit down and chat, and I could put you in the hot seat about some common misconceptions, and stigmas surrounding the work that you do.
I love it.
I know that as you were kind of formulating this new curriculum, and even over the past, course of the podcast, there have been a lot of questions that have come up, and I figured that we can make a fun episode out of it for anyone sitting, I don't know, on the fence about taking action, either with the program that you offer, or just like with this work in general, and seeing kind of like what's
Sure.
the next step with healing their emotional eating. Um, so yeah, I figured we would just dive right into a couple like Q&A rapid fire.
I love it. I love that. That's such a great idea. I'm also a little anxious because I don't know what you're going to ask me.
No anxiety needed. I'm sure they're like it's all things that we talk about. So
Perfect.
no
Um,
no gotcha moments here.
Perfect.
um so first, my first question for you
Yeah.
is we talk a lot about intuitive eating just being one of like part of this larger work. What is the difference between intuitive eating versus the work that you do?
Yeah. So I feel like there's a two-part answer to this because so much of the work that I do is about connecting to your intuition. But I think that there's a very big difference between the intuitive eating movement, which is a movement that is separate. Um, there is a movement out there that's like the intuitive eating movement, and there's books about it, and there's coaches that are specifically trained in the intuitive eating movement, and it's much more geared towards how you eat food rather than connecting to your intuition as a separate skill that you have to know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then almost as an unfolding, and as a result, your relationship with eating becomes easier and becomes more in integrity and aligned because you're connected to your intuition. In my expertise, and I feel like I could speak to this, with a lot of integrity since I am an expert and I am a dietitian and I've been around for a very long time in this field in this way. A lot of people who try the intuitive eating movement are not in tune with their intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they go wrong. Because a big part of the directives in the intuitive eating movement assumes that you understand what it means to be in touch with your intuition. So you can just just go with how you feel, eat what you want. But a big part of the way that intuitive eating works is that you're also able to have boundaries with yourself and be able to get to a place where you intuitively know, oh, I'm full. You intuitively know, oh, I shouldn't eat this anymore because it's not in alignment with what's in service of what I need anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know what that is, you're not going to succeed with the intuitive eating movement. So what I do is I teach women how to connect with their intuition. It is an actual skill. It is practice. You learn through consistent practicing certain certain tactics, certain mindsets, certain mindfulness techniques. Oftentimes you become more successful at it because the way that your mindset is trained, you're able to not be aligned with it, right? So for example, oftentimes people learn more about their intuition and their relationship with food by going way beyond what was necessary for them to eat, and then they connect with their intuition, but only because they have the prompts and the coaching and the consistency and the support to be able to hold space for that kind of messiness, basically.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like when you talk about it, it reminds me of like the concept that people have of like psychiatrist versus therapist. Like somebody to hold the space for them, or like, so there's the psychiatrist who like gives kind of like the diagnostic umbrella, and they can, tell you what you need to do to like, or like maybe get prescribed medication or something like that, like in order for like treatment. Whereas like a therapist like kind of guides you and gives you the tools, and like helps you put the tools in the toolbox, like to get through that, you know?
Exactly. Like a strategy or a tip, or some sort of directive is not going to be what gets you from, it's not going to be like A, B equals C. A lot of times getting to the place that you want to get to with your relationship with food and ultimately losing weight, if that's your goal, is through applying tools and skills and building them consistently over time, and getting the feedback, and then not giving up and having momentum, and then revisiting it again and the tool, basically, it's an ever evolving thing. So initially you have like one tool, which is like a mindset prompt or a coaching prompt, but then the tool evolves based on your application of the tool and the feedback you get from the tool and your ability to process and reflect and extricate new information from the tool and then go back and do it again. And so I think where a lot of women fail or go wrong, it's because they don't have the consistency and the support system to stay consistent, continue to apply, to continue to pay attention, and to continue to have that support system to stay accountable to processing and reflecting on the feedback, and then continuing to have the momentum to do it again. Because ultimately, the best strategy for success is consistency, attention, and reflection, and then iteration, essentially.
Right.
And so that's what the mentorship does for you, right? It gives you the tools and a new way to look at things, and like, actually new tactics, but it also gives you that support system that is what you need to connect to yourself, essentially, so that you can be an intuitive person, and intuitive eating then comes out of that.
Right. I love that. Yeah. No, that I feel like that's a great way to put it. And it's definitely like nuanced, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. So I know that so much of what is integral to your work is your own experience with emotional eating. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious if there was ever a certain point in the help that you received, or just like your journey in general, where you were attempting to recover from emotional eating, where you were like, this aspect of what's available to me is missing, that helped inform you on how to better guide women now. For example, like, was it knowledge about nutrition? You were like, we're not talking about this, which like changed the game once you realized it.
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, I think that I feel like the biggest thing that I felt like was missing for me was the ability to hold space for myself. and be with the imperfectness of it, be with the lack of be with the reality that there's no right answer. There's no right way to do something. There's no like if you follow this plan, you are going to get this result.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that. Like it's not going to happen, especially when it comes to healing from emotional eating and also wanting to lose weight. Like again, I think when I've talked about this before, when you're a performance athlete, you can be formulaic like that. But there's no formula to healing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't and also you can be more formulaic about weight loss, but ultimately weight loss doesn't equal healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like one of the biggest values that I offer women is giving them the space to feel the fear of not having control, but realizing that just by being present to that fear and having tactics with eating that help you and tactics with mindset that help you reconnect to your intuition, to yourself, that you can like do on autopilot, that don't feel super sensational. And you can also feel the fear it's not going to work, but you continue to stay consistent because you have the momentum and the support system. And then eventually in like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, usually it takes that little time for you to get the verified evidence that it does work because you've been consistent for that long and you've had the support system. And then it's easier to keep going. It's easier than to be like, okay, it doesn't need to be so formulaic. It doesn't need to have I don't need to follow something so strictly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, I didn't have a support system when I was doing this for myself. It was just me. I guess the support system was my yoga practice, my meditation practice, the meditation classes I would go to every week, right? Like I created for myself these tools and support systems to increase my capacity for discomfort. And then I applied a lot of the tactics with food that no one really was talking about, but I just intuitively felt like was right. And I had the results that I have, right? Which was my sustained 40-pound weight loss and like my healing my own binging and bulimia and my urgent and mindless eating with food, and where now I feel very free with food. It feels cliche to say that, but like now I feel so safe and like unafraid with eating. I don't have any fear that something is gonna make me spiral or that something is gonna make me gain weight. And so I think that the tactics with food were things that I tried for myself as I was connecting to my intuition. It was kind of these things, and then I was like, oh, this works, and I would like make a list, and that's how I created my programs essentially. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, what's the missing piece? And it was the support system.
Right.
And the support system was what I created for myself and what I now have created in the mentorship, which is like meditations and community support and tools and coaching and ability to, unburden some of the stuff in a community, in a support system, consistent connection to mindfulness and meditation so that you have that consistent plug-in to grow your capacity and your own support system for yourself over time. But again, it takes application of the tools and practice and consistency. And that was something that I think I had naturally. And not everybody, like most people don't. And I think that that's why I've succeeded. And I've succeeded in a way where I have no rules. Like I really have this true freedom. Mm-hmm. It's not freedom where I'm following a reverse diet or like a macro count, or freedom where I'm like, yes, I've lost this much weight, but I don't eat sugar, and I've cut out processed foods, and it's so great, like there's nothing I don't eat, seriously. So that's the difference, right? And I realized that the difference is really in the ability to be consistent and the support system. And that's what I think is missing in these things. And it needs to be a support system and consistency for a long period of time. 2 months isn't enough time. Even 4 months isn't enough time. You need it to train. Look, like I always say this, when you think about being pregnant, someone is pregnant, if you're thinking of recovery as birthing a new version of yourself, don't expect it to be less than 9 months.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, honestly.
Like it takes us
you're like the new you.
Yes, and that's what I want people to think about. Like don't expect anything to take less than 9 months. When biology and humanity, if we're trying to change our cells and our nervous system, that's exactly what growing a baby is. You're creating new cells, right? And it takes 9 months for that to happen, to just be birthed, not even to be like, aware. That takes 25 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, right? So if we think it's going to take a short amount of time, it's not, which is why I created this mentorship, because that's what I realized. People are not willing to spend enough time doing it. So I wanted to create this mentorship where it gives you the time. It's a low lift financially, and that's it. And you're going to change your cells. You're going to change your nervous system. You're going to change your behaviors by being consistent and paying attention.
Yeah. No, you're so right. I think that you're so right by saying that, like, it is a long game. Like, it's not gonna happen overnight, and it's like you shouldn't lose that kind of like optimism that you have just because it's taking longer as well. What I was going to ask is there and maybe what you touched on is that, but is there a kind of biggest misconception that you have noticed that people have around emotional eating?
Yeah, I think people think that there are that there's like a strategy, right? Like I'll get a question and it's like, what is the strategy? Can I have like 2 strategies to heal my nervous system to stop having a craving or to stop binging? And the strategy is to know, there is a strategy, right? Like, and the strategy, I'm not going to gatekeep. Like, I'll tell people the strategy on this podcast. Like, it's to pause, it's to know what you're feeling, it's to be in tune with yourself. Now, it's a skill to get in tune with yourself. That takes time, right? There's a skill.
Do you think people ask that because, I mean, you've kind of explained this a little bit on a recent podcast, but like, do you think people ask that because they want those actionable steps and they're like, that gives like some sort of semblance of control? It's like,
yeah, because
like, we want the steps because then that's like, if I do the steps, then I will get the results and I will have control.
Yes, if I have A, then I'll then B, and then equal C, and it will go away.
Yeah.
And like information doesn't equal transformation. It's information plus application of the process plus maybe it not maybe it not working, right? Like if it was as simple as me giving somebody information and then they would get the result, I would have no job. Like people would already be doing it because it's not the information, like getting the strategy. And it's like, give me like 2 strategies. It's being like, oh, okay, that's good. Let me practice that. Let me apply that.
Right.
And then it's being like, this is very difficult. I'm not applying it. And then it's the next time it happens, not doing it, then realizing that you didn't do it, right? It's reflection. So information plus application plus reflection plus reapplication plus reflection
Lots of reflection.
over and over, and then reapplication is transformation.
Right. Right. And I think that goes back into the feedback loop that you talk about a lot, is like it's constant minor adjustments. Like once you kind of get that feedback back, you're kind of like, okay, let me like sidestep a little bit, or like here's the piece that like that's going to turn to put the Tetris into place kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you realize that like that Tetris in place might also, not be in place, and that's also okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think the biggest misconception is that there is a solution to every problem that is in a microcosm, right? And that's not the case, actually.
Mhm.
Right? It's like, oh, how do I stop craving food at night? What do I do to stop craving food at night? And a lot of times, how to stop craving food at night comes from a lot of the stuff that you're doing during the day. But
Mhm.
if you don't have the tools of how to approach your day in a way that, holistically helps you understand your motivations for eating, or you're not connected to yourself throughout the day, you're not going to understand yourself enough to be able to apply that tool at the end of the day, which is like just pause, notice what you're feeling, you know, um, see what else you need besides food. A lot of times people can't hold that space for themselves to even go through this tool.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
very difficult to do that. And maybe they can do it once, right? And that happens, right? Like maybe they do it once and
Mhm.
it feels so good. But then the next day they don't do it. And then they
Right.
feel like they failed. And you didn't fail. That's just par for the course. You have to continue to be consistent. Continue to just like show up for yourself in that way.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm curious, and this might just be our last question, but I'm curious if you have had like a memorable, like maybe something like one that stands out of, a breakthrough that you've had with a client around their relationship with food.
Yes,
I'm
I
sure
love
there've
this.
been many, but I'm curious if there's like one that really stands out to you.
Yes. There is. I feel like I kind of want to find the actual post. Um, because my clients will often post, and like people post in the group. Um, Hold on. And I try to keep a good record of these testimonials, I guess, or like people just reflecting. But here, let's see. So I mean, there's a lot of when people just make different get to a place where they're making different choices with food, like they realize that they have the control over the different decisions they're making with eating, and it's not deprivation. And I feel like that's a huge aha moment, like when clients and students are like, I decided not to eat this. Like I realized that I was going to be eating out of mindlessness, or that I was having this urge to binge, and I didn't. And the next day they were like, I really wanted it, so now I had it more mindfully. Like the way that they were able to be with themselves through the process.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so this is like, today I went to the spa to get my Botox. There was a bowl of candy. I didn't react and I didn't grab any. Now I don't even remember what candy the bowl had. There was also a French bakery right next door. I thought about going there to get treats, but decided not to. So these are like huge.
Mhm. That
Like,
feels
so
almost poetic in a way. Like, I don't even remember what candy was in the bowl, you know what I mean?
exactly, right? Like, you know, exactly. It's like it seems like such a big thing in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize afterwards that, that it's really not, it's really not that big of a deal. But the thing is like, you have to create that evidence for yourself that that's a possibility, right?
Right.
That it's a possibility that it's not going to feel like the biggest deal in the world to eat this bowl of candy. But the only way you could do that is by being there for yourself and not eating the bowl of candy.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes people need support as they're changing this behavior. It feels very triggering, right? Like you feel like you're on a diet, you're depriving yourself, a lot of stuff comes up. And so, people need support to change these behaviors. It's not just, I couldn't just say to her, don't eat it, right? Because I have to respect also the emotional process that goes into that. And I think that a lot of times people don't get the support they need in the emotional process that they're going through while they're making these behavior changes based on information and strategies that they're given. Right? There's a lot of emotional stuff that comes up when you're trying to apply these strategies.
Right.
And we need support around that.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, and I think that that's the most important thing. So one of my clients had a birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very nervous about going to this restaurant for her birthday because in the past she's like eaten to the gills, and it's been a very triggering experience for her. And and this is one of those things where somebody said, where you hear somebody give so much power to the food and to the restaurant. And what I try to teach people is like, you're the one that has the control. The restaurant, the food isn't the one with the control. And so this is what she said. She goes, I was so anxious about coming here. I checked the menu before going to sleep and woke up with anxiety at 3 a.m. I saw this bread pudding and felt all the feelings. Bread pudding is one of the foods I used to binge on. I have baked a whole one and ate it at one point. Last time I came to the restaurant like this, I left with a food coma. I legit thought I would not be able to stop. I took a break and held the baby after I finished the eggs and the salmon that I had decided to eat, and then I got up and I grabbed the bread pudding. I was tempted to get more. Oh, and then I got up and grabbed the cinnamon bread. I was tempted to get more cinnamon bread, but I already had one, so there was no need. I ate this very slowly. Once again, I didn't get that high that I thought I was going to get. It didn't taste as good as I remembered, or I didn't get the feeling I was expecting. So I ate it, and that was it. There was no need for 2 more plates of it.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that behavior change in the moment, to do that in the moment, is massive.
Yeah.
That's been like a year in the making with her.
And that's
right?
so cognizant too, like being aware of even that the potential of having those feelings exist. You know what I mean?
And that's the healing, to be able to in the moment. Plenty of people could tell you after the fact what happened, right? They can recall, which is why I always say, like, recall is not a good way to heal, right? Counting calories, counting macros, tracking, and then looking at it after the fact. It's not a good way to heal. Like, you're not going to heal that way. All you're going to do is have more information, and that's it. You heal when in the moment you can make different decisions. And that is a skill. That is intuition. That is intuitive eating.
Yeah.
Right? To be able to, in the moment, be able to do that. That means you have had to change the cellular structure of your nervous system. You have had to completely heal the way that your brain is relating to food, right? So you're not numbing, you're not urgently, you're doing the pause in real time. That takes practice, failing at it, willing to do it over again. That's a huge mountain to climb. And so when I have clients that are able to do that in the moment like that, that's one of those moments where I'm like, you're there. You know what I'm saying? And that type of eating, that type of behavior with eating is what effortlessly makes you lose weight. Because when you approach your eating that way, you can eat anything you want and you'll lose weight because you are the one in control.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome.
Yay, awesome. I love that. I just feel like it's so we could talk forever, but especially about this and all the intricacies of like the work that you do. I find it so fascinating. And so I love that we were able to kind of like unpack a little bit of like the ethos behind like your work
Mhm.
and that sort of thing. And really like we were talking about a little bit before is like there's some notions that people have about this kind of work, and one that's like easy, two that it's quick, or just the nuances of it in general. So I'm glad that we got to talk about it today.
Yeah, me too. It's really, there's two journeys. There's the healing journey of emotional eating and binging, and then there's the weight loss journey. And, like I've said before, they overlap, but they are two different journeys. And if you are somebody that struggles with emotional eating and you also want to lose weight, it is a different journey. It is a more nuanced, path.
Mm-hmm.
And other tactics and techniques and programs that are very, very focused on data and tracking and all that stuff is not going to get to the heart of what it really takes to grow what you need to inside of yourself to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so I'm so happy. This was amazing. I truly, I hope that I answered the questions well, because
Yeah.
I didn't see them in advance. Um, and yeah, and thank you everyone for listening to the episode. I hope this was really helpful. We have links to the mentorship in the show notes if you're interested. We have a $33 trial for 1 month if that's something you're interested in. And that's it. So, yeah, until next time, I'm Alana.
And I'm Kassi.
And thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped. See you guys next week.